to you, and thank you for still being here. I'd like to begin. As an introduction, this project is an artistic doctorate, which I'm studying at the Zurich University of Arts in cooperation with the doctoral school in Graz. The experiences from earlier research projects are included, as well as considerations on how a distributed audio stream can be combined with visuals in space and mobile devices. But first, I want to talk about the theoretical framework of this project. There's an ongoing discussion about liveness and the use of media in electroacoustic music and audiovisual projects, for example, by John Kraft or Philipp Ausländer or Erika Fischlichter and others. The question is, whatever I receive, how does it address the audience? How does it address me and the others? In loudspeaker concepts, sound generation is separated from the sound reproduction, and there's often no way to understand how these sounds are produced. Sometimes there's missing a feeling of liveness. In contrast to instrumental music, with performers playing live, there is no certainty of witnessing a sonic movement that lends something special to the present and the concert and the performance. So this project follows the idea that space can make a significant contribution to giving the audience the feeling of liveness. In contrast to a strategy that places the physical presence of the performer in the foreground or to emphasize technical interaction, the spatial arrangement of image and sound projections is also suitable to create liveness and presence and to bring the peculiarity of the moment closer to the audience. In this context, it is also important how the artistic work can address the listener personally and at the same time achieve the perception of a unity with distributed images and sound sources. As far as the relationship between sound and image is concerned, my perspective as a composer is not primarily concerned with the research for correspondences between different media, but with the establishment of a contrapunctal relationship. In this relationship, temporal margins and differences between the media are also increasingly taken into account. First, I want to take a closer look at the sound zones within a concert. Dennis Smalley has implemented Edwards Hall's theories of proxemic classification as the basis of describing the sound spaces created in the performance space with instrumental music. He has divided the zones of social interaction into 4 different zones. These 4 spheres of interaction are described with spatial dimensions that have a very dynamic relationship to each other. The intimate space comprises a very close physical area. This is followed by this personal space, which is about 1 arm's length and describes the area of interpersonal communication. Social contact and interaction take place in the social zone. The public space includes the widest area around us. Accordingly, Smalley describes the close sphere of action of the individual instruments as gestural space, which is characterized by the physical action and movements of the instrumentalist. The ensemble space is described as the sphere of activity of the entire ensemble and comprises the acoustic field of the ensemble and the stage space. Finally, the arena space encompasses the entire performance venue with the ensemble and the audience. This These divisions are more or less clearly separated from each other, and the dynamic relationship of the individual sound spaces vary with the divisions of the concert space and the circumstances of the concert. These descriptions are suitable for an instrumental performance with a classical arrangement of ensemble, stage, and audience. But what acoustic spaces arise in the concert with electroacoustic music, where the loudspeakers are arranged around the audience and the performers are perhaps in the middle of the room. In my project, responsive space, I also use mobile devices of the audience sound sources. How are the sound zones and effect zones of this situation? In this arrangement, there are sound zones that surround each other and are interlocked. The sound space of the arena results from a multitude of effect zones, which are configured and changed depending on the listener's point of view and the nature of the space. This raises a number of interesting questions about how a constellation can be described and how it can be further thought. Which sound zones arise in such a concert situation? How do the individual sound zones proceed, and what dynamic relationship do they stand to each other? So to examine this phenomenon, I developed a mobile setup which allows a flexible work with distributed sound and image projections. This setup includes a speaker system with 4 or more speakers, 2 or 3 projections on the local Wi-Fi network where the audience can dial in. The sounds are played back on the speaker system as well as streamed to the mobile devices or generated directly on the browser. Similarly, the visual material is projected onto screens on the wall or on the mobile devices. Here I have a short example. There's also a performance tonight. I hope it will work. So I make performances in different venues. The use of a multi-channel loudspeaker system and the inclusion of the mobile devices of the audience as sound sources results in a unique listening situation that allows the spatial gesture of the music to come to the fore. On the other hand, the audience could determine the volume and the direction of the sound themselves. The participation of the audience and the interaction with each other leads to the creation of a social space in the concert. The output of the image and the sound material on many different distributed devices is a possibility to make the viewer aware of his or her own listening and viewing position. The challenge now lies in composing works with these many sound sources and visual output devices, which in their complexity can also be perceived as a comprehensible unit. For this task, the observation of the intermediate counterpoint proves to be useful. In the performance, 5 different sounds or sound types are generated. These 5 sound types are each assigned to 5 different abstract forms or movements. Through the mapping of parameters, a connection between the sound types and the visual forms are created. But these parameters are distributed with variations on every output media. I've tried to find visual correspondences for the 5 different sound types. Here's a translation of the sine wave. The volume is assigned to the brightness and amplitude, the pitch to the period to the oscillation. Here's a noise with filter. The volume is mapped to the brightness parameter. The position on the screen is equal to the panning of the sound. A bell sound is an additive synthesis, is connected to triangle shape, and a granular synthesis with a sinus tone is related to textures of squares, whereas granular synthesis with samples is shown as fluctuating rectangles. On the one hand, the mapping results in a high degree of agreement between the media. However, there are differences on every output media. They are set intentionally, but also as a result of the variety of devices. Especially on the browser, the mobile devices, there are different forms generated. This creates an interplay of correspondences and dissonance. This can be seen as an intermediate counterpoint. The mobile devices, which are otherwise used in a very private context, will expand in the concert as a contribution to a collective experience. The private personal space enters into communication with the public collective space. Ideally, it brings the audience into a listen situation, which I call extended listening. This hearing includes not only the musical process or the perception of the audiovisual stimuli, but also an experience of the physical, acoustic, and social space, and an experience of the present moment, which I would interpret as a feeling of liveness. The feeling of liveness is also supported by the imperfection of the time synchronization in the reproducing of the sound. Different mobile devices have different run times and buffer times. This is an audio stream which I generate with a super collider on the laptop, a performance laptop. This results in a kind of granularization and movement of sound, which is composed of a multitude of individual events or time-shifted sound layers. In addition, there are differences between the output of the image on the mobile devices and the images projected in the room, as well as the intentionally designed variations and differences on each individual device. The individual shares his listening and viewing area with his immediate neighbors, but also has a very individual listening area and viewing angle. The personal zone thus expands into a social experience in which the uniqueness of the moment is shared. So thank you for your attention.
Okay. We'll take a couple minutes for questions. There's one there.
Thank you for an interesting presentation. Just to clarify, I think I missed this. Are you sending code to the phones to generate the sound on the phone, or are you sending an audio stream to the phone? And if case, how many distinct audio streams are you sending to the phones?
Well, there's one, in this case, there's one audio stream which I'm sending to the phone, but the visuals are generated on the phone, and the communication for generating the visuals is made with WebSocket, and also from out of a super collider with OSC messages. But I've also worked other projects with web audio, but in this case, I stream the audio.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I will ask one. We won't let you go to lunch early. I have a question about the theoretical model about personal space. In a way, it's a kind of jokey question. Having lived in different areas of the world, I have experienced different parameters in terms of what counts as like your personal space and not. So I guess it's a question about how flexible it would be to change that, were you to put this experience on in different countries in the world.
Well, I have not experience in that, but maybe this is changing as well. But I think it's also interesting to think about what spaces are in such a context. So what is the situation? Because there's overlapping spaces. I think somehow the personal space overlaps with the space of the loudspeakers or the public space, in that kind. And so this makes a kind of awareness of space. I think this would be I would describe of a interesting effect what this makes.